Hello, I'm Alan J and welcome to the GCSE Maths Tutor channel. In this tutorial we'll have a look at how surds can be simplified by first factorising them into their constituent factors. Surds can then be reduced to smaller numbers by taking out the squares of like factors. The method, sometimes called reduction, is primarily applied to square root surds, though you may get a cube root problem at a higher level. Now there is one thing to remember when using this method, and it is simply that the square root of a squared number gives the original number. So the square root of 3 times 3 gives 3, the square root of 5 times 5 gives 5, the square root of 11 times 11 gives 11, and so on. Putting this in general terms, if our number is x, then the square root of x squared is x. It will pay you to know your squares too, so you can readily spot them within surds. Just to remind you, here are the first 5 prime number squares. 2 squared, 2 times 2 is 4. 3 squared, that's 3 times 3, is 9. 5 squared, that's 5 times 5, is 25. 7 squared, that's 7 times 7, is 49. And 11 squared, 11 times 11, is 121. So let's get started. Looking at some worked examples will help you get the hang of things. Example number 1. Simplify the square root of 18. The square root of 18 equals the square root of 9 times 2, which equals the square root of 3 times 3 times 2. But the square root of 3 times 3 equals 3. So we can write the square root of 18 equals the square root of 3 times 3 in brackets times 2. We can separate the square roots to the square root of 3 times 3 times the square root of 2, which equals 3 times the square root of 2. Example number 2. Simplify the square root of 50. The square root of 50 equals the square root of 10 times 5, which equals the square root of 2 times 5 times 5. But the square root of 5 times 5 is 5. So the square root of 50 equals the square root of 5 times 5 times the square root of 2, which equals 5 times the square root of 2. Example number 3. Simplify the square root of 28. The square root of 28 equals the square root of 14 times 2, which equals the square root of 2 times 2 times 7. But the square root of 2 times 2 is 2. So the square root of 28 equals the square root of 2 times 2 times the square root of 7, which equals 2 times the square root of 7. Well, here endeth the lesson on surd simplification by the method of reduction. Anyway, do look out for the next in the series. Lesson 4 continues the reduction theme, but this time with much larger numbers. And please, if you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate you giving the channel a like, favourite or a subscribe. As before, your comments on the show, suggestions to make it better or ideas for new videos are always welcome. Thank you all for watching.